our next speaker. Having had both an exciting and varied career, we are honoured to hear his incredible story and some of the lessons of resilience and leadership he's learned and he's going to share with us today. Welcome, Colin.
Thanks very much. Not my most explosive entrance, but you know, that's the world we're in right now. But yeah, very honoured to be among some of these. I think that's one of the beauties about speaking. Sometimes you get to hear other speakers and it helps you sort of hone your own game like you would in any other profession. So it's one of the perks of the job.
So let me take that on. Kind of how important is it to you when you are delivering a speech that you understand what's gone before you, and how much do you adjust your speech to take into account the kind of what the previous speakers have spoken about?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to an initial point about your preparation. And I think most people realise that the military, particularly special forces, training and preparation, your rehearsals, your recce, is all really important, and it helps you in a number of different avenues. So one of them might be knowing the audience. So how is the audience and what are the parallels? How can I join the dots between special forces and what they're here for and what the message is? Because sometimes that can be totally, you know, off-piste. And I know Nigel talked about, you know, knowing your audience and who's in the room and being able to adjust to that. So it's knowing that if you're going to talk about a male-dominated society, you're talking to people that sort of empathize with that. Because just like Daisy said, you want to create a connection. And so one of the things I do is I get a joke out very early and I make myself seem very vulnerable, because I think sometimes people can have this sort of conceived notion that you're going to come out as this SAS guy and tell them how it's going to be, you're bulletproof, nothing can touch you and you're brilliant at everything. Whereas if you tell them, you know, you've come out there and you've been scared out your wits end, not knowing what's going on, and managed to scrape through the other end, but here's the reasons why, I think they can empathize with that a lot more. I think training and preparation also helps you, because it helps you. It's like anything. If you do something for the first time, it can be quite daunting. It's that whole unknown thing. Whereas the more preparation you have, that knowledge dispels fear. So I know I'm not going to run over time. I know if technology fails, I can just speak for 40 minutes. I know that if I get asked an awkward question, this is how I'm going to deal with it. So when it happens, it's not the shock of capture. You've prepared yourself in your mind for it and you're ready to deal with it. So training and preparations goes a long way.
So let me take that to the next step. And kind of one of the things I speak about in the book is around kind of controlling your nerves before you go on stage or you deliver your speech. From your perspective, kind of how do you kind of, when you're under pressure situations, and clearly you've been under pressure situations, how do you make sure you are delivering your message both in the best way, but also so everyone can is listening and you're delivering it in a timely fashion, while you also probably your adrenaline's pumping and kind of your head's all over the place a bit?
Yeah, I think nerves are quite healthy. I think everybody would have nerves, and no matter how many talks I've done, no matter how many times I've jumped out an airplane with a parachute, or I've went into battle with live rounds coming the other way, I've always had an element of nerves. And nerves can be quite healthy because they keep you sharp and they keep you in focus about all the things that you need to keep, you know, your ducks in a row. I think one of the important things is you can only control the controllables. So this is what I can control. I can control what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And then all these other things might happen from a tangent. Your technology might fail, an awkward question, something might not go down well. And again, a lot of that goes back to sort of preparation and that. But I think a lot of it is making these sort of tangible lines of communication with the people you're speaking to, and what is the message you're trying to say. And quite often that's fine for us as speakers, because we've had a call before that, we spoke to the client, we know what it is that they want to speak on, and then I can tailor my stories accordingly. So if that's something about resilience, adapting to change, leadership, I can pick missions that are stereotypical, that tick those boxes, and you tell them. A lot of it goes back to the way you tell a story as well. I remember following on from Sir Clive Woodward, who has a great story about winning the World Cup with England, but it was all about data. It was all about how he managed data, and data can be quite a boring subject. So it's how you tell that story and make it interesting, bring it to life, and bring people in the room with you. When I'm in the jungle and I'm going to rescue the hostages, I want them there beside me, hearing and feeling everything, hearing the bullets go past, so they're in amongst it. And I think you create that sort of environment. Storytelling's a great skill.
So the storytelling, which to me is absolutely critical, you say it's a great skill. Again, from your perspective, is it something you trained yourself to be better at, or is it just because you feel comfortable because the content you are delivering in terms of the story of the jungle, I'd love to hear the story, kind of is your own, and therefore all you're doing is you're reliving your experiences, which means it's like you're in the pub, when we can go to the pub again, with your friend and recounting some stories.
Yeah, I know you touch quite a lot on the art of storytelling in your book, and I think it's really important, particularly for anything. If you want to keep people engaged, and I know we talked about that sort of 40-minute, Nigel touched on, once you get past sort of 40 minutes, people's sort of concentration starts to wane, they drift in and out the room. So I always go sort of up and down. I go from missions to what we learned from it, how we put that into perspective, how it fits in your world, and then back to another mission. So we're on a sort of roller coaster. And as we're going through it, you can't be too descriptive. You've got 40 minutes. And if you're going to talk about maybe 3 different missions, you've got to get through it. So you want as much bang for your buck. So you want to be whistling through it. You know, we did this, we did the briefing, we flew out the hangar, and we're all looking at each other, and then we hit the plane. And everyone's like, you know, they're rushing along beside you, and they're sort of galloping along beside you on this mission. And it's also got to, it's got to be told in a way they can understand. If I start coming out with military abbreviations, they won't know what it is. And, you know, and that's, I remember telling a story once, and I said I was captured, I was in Iraq, I was blindfolded, handcuffed, I was naked, and then I got butt stroked. And that sent everybody off on a tangent because they were like, oh, butt stroked, what's that? And actually, you know, it's not as exciting as you think. It's just getting hit with a rifle. But you've got to be wary of the language you use, but also be able to just flow along nicely with a story and keep people on board.
Did you, when you kind of got to keep on with that story, did you did you lose the room when you mentioned about stroke because you could see everyone's eyes wandering? And if you did, how did you bring them back? Did you go and explain what it meant because you saw that they were off on a tangent?
Yeah, quite often at the end of, so there's a number of ways you can do the talk. You can do it where you just have questions at the end, or you can do it where at the end of each sort of mission, you're bringing it into line with the company values, perspectives, culture, and this is how you put it into work in your workspace. And sometimes there's room for questions then. And there might be a couple of people that were like, what does butt stroke mean? And then someone else was like, yeah, I was thinking that. And then I think, right, note to oneself, never use that term again. You know, say something else. And I think you're always learning as a speaker. You're always trying to hone. And you touched on it, Nick, where you're always your worst critic because you always come off it and think, how can I improve that? What went wrong there? You don't focus on all the stuff that went great, even though you might get great feedback, testimonials come flying back. You think, how can I sharpen that? How can I take that out so it never happens again, or whatever? And I think that's a great skill. A lot of people know our ethos in the SAS, our motto, who dares wins. Very few people know our ethos, which is the continuing and unrelenting pursuit of excellence. You're never perfect, but you keep chipping away, you keep striving for it, you keep reaching for it. And I think that's a great notion to have.
So can I ask just about that briefly? You've got a team of experts, of highly, highly skilled individuals, and their ethos is to continue to strive to be better. How do they, when they first join, how do you get them to that level? And they think kind of they join the SAS, therefore they're the best of the best of the best. How do you bring them down to a level of understanding that they can always get better? Is it something that comes naturally, and we go back to Nigel and the personalities, or is it something that actually you need to recondition yourself?
I think one of the earliest tricks they do is that they'll show you this is how it should be done, and this isn't perfect. And they'll show you the experts that will go and take a house down in like 48 seconds. And then it's like, okay, how do we get there? And how do we improve on that? And quite often when we have a counter-terrorist situation, we always have 2 ways of doing it: a deliberate action and immediate action. And a deliberate action, that's the plan. That's what we're going to do, ground time of our choosing. But we need an immediate action. What we're going to do if they start killing hostages right now, because those plans are going to be different for obvious reasons. Now, we know those plans, but we know because we've done them 100 times. And we're not afraid to fail. We learn from failure. So we try that. We try something a bit different out the box. It doesn't work. We take stuff from it and we go again. And we keep doing it until we're honed. until there's no way. These are the two best ways of doing it, and we've shaved every second off that we can, because lives matter in our world. So marginal gains are really important.
And for you, kind of in the world of speaking, when you started delivering your speeches, do you take that methodology and take that ethos into your speaking and kind of set yourself up to be your harshest critic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important. And I think that you can get too much, you can get consumed with it, and you've only got so much time you can apportion to it. But I think the more stuff that you've done prior, the more likely you are to get where you need to be on the day of the races. Because remember, when you're speaking, it's a bit like being an elite athlete. It's a bit like when you're a presenter or a host or you're a sports team. You've only got a very short space of time in the arena. So all the work that you can do around the outside will give you the best chance of success when it comes to, right, the starter gun goes off, or right, we're here in the room and we're setting a host. So it's exactly the same principles.
Colin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Join us again for the panel. Thank you, sir.